I wasn't surprised. If you think back to the previous national accounts, for the fourth quarter, economic growth was subdued, but maybe even more importantly, the income side of the accounts was particularly weak. So when you control for the effects of the terms of trade, and then you put it in per capita terms, I mean, living standards are effectively falling in Australia, or they're close to. The rebalancing of the economy that the RBA has been trying to achieve through sort of easier monetary policy, it's sort of only been partially successful. So yes, there's sort of the housing market's been doing well, but non-mining business investment is still very weak. I think the RBA is of the view that the exchange rate is still overvalued, and it's difficult to get the currency down without sort of signalling to markets that the path of policy is going to be easier. They revised down their growth forecast for this year, and they're perhaps sort of still a little bit too optimistic on that front. So I think it's just a signal from them that they're more worried about the outlook than they were previously, and that even though the dollar's depreciated somewhat, all currencies have been falling against the US dollar over the past 6 months. So on a trade-weighted basis, the adjustment hasn't been quite as large. That's an open question, because in some sense these things are experimental. Macroprudential policy has become much more popular, and I'm a very strong advocate of it. I think it's a way you're effectively increasing your toolbox. You're sort of saying, look, overall the economy needs looser conditions, however this part of the market arguably doesn't, and so we need to make sure that you don't get imbalances. So in principle it's a great idea. The problem is in practice it's difficult to implement. It's difficult to calculate exactly what the consequences are. There are always unintended consequences. It incentivises banks to arbitrage around the changes in regulations. So I think it's a good idea that they start down that path and they monitor them, and then they sort of see how effective they are. But I think it is important that if they're loosening policy, and the trend, as we know, the transmission of looser policy into the housing market in Australia is very strong, then they need to be very cognizant that they don't build up other imbalances in the system.